beautiful Sarasota Bray Denton. Then we move to the second semi-final of the lightweight men's double sculls. Lane 1, South Africa. Lane 2, Belgium. Lane 3, China. Lane 4, Italy. Lane 5, Denmark. And Lane 6, the Czech Republic.
There's the coaches at the start. Cycle up there and hang out, have a bit of chat if they can get over the nerves. But we'll take you through and introduce the competitors, the distinctive blades of South Africa. There's the bowman, Vaughan Boats, 22 years of age, and Nick Obolter, 21-year-old in the stroke seat of the South African crew. Next to them, the two talented Belgian, Tim Brees, furthest away from you on the right of your screen, Niels van Zwager, 21-year-old. They're the Chinese, both 22, Sun Man, furthest away from you, closest to you, Fan Junji. Sun Man, of course, in the Rio Olympics, 11th in the lightweight men's double scull, got a new partner. The favourites for this race, Stefano Oppo, 23 years of age, and the vast experience of Pietro Ruta with a distinctive beard. I'm sure they will win this semi-final. The Danes, Emil Espensen, furthest away from you, Matt Larsen, the 25-year-old. They're both 25-year-old, these lads. And they're the older of the two scullers, Miroslav Rastil, in the stroke seat, 34 years of age. He's been doing triathlon this year, Ironman triathlon, and he's come back into the sport. Yuri Simonek, the 21-year-old, 13 years of age difference between the two Czech scullers. Loose grip there.
Attention.
In a little start there, we saw a little tap, a little adjustment coming from the Italians in the middle, lane 4. But very fast start there from the Italians, as we'd expect. They're certainly the crew to watch in this race, much like the French in the race prior.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Italians get away so quickly. I was just looking at their length of stroke on the first stroke, and it looked like it was about a quarter slide. So the first thing that happens is the legs slam down, and then they get quickly onto that second stroke before lengthening out, as we see them now, getting up and into the race.
Yeah, they had a great season, this double. Really did well in the Europeans, took the bronze medal there. They've had to go head-to-head with the French double all season. And just looking back at the Lucerne splits, they gave them a great race and came in just under a length behind the French at Lucerne. But they are a really class crew as we ride with the Czech double there, Brastil, in the stroke seat. I think I used to race his dad, and I think that shows my age.
Currently sitting in second, it's China, just bow ball for bow ball, really, with these Italians. We're coming up to the 500-metre mark. So we ride there with the Chinese crew sitting up on 38 strokes per minute.
Fan Junji from the Guangdong province. He's closest to you, and then his partner, Sun Man, the man who was in the Rio Olympics from the Liaoning province. Both these men came fourth in this event when they were over in Europe earlier in the season at the Poznan Regatta. Well, my prediction of the Italians winning is shown to be pretty reliable at this time, guys.
Yeah, no, Martin, I thought it was a big shout when you went for it straight from the beginning that you were going to expect them to win this. They are the experienced crew, but I think as we have a look here, the great stroke length and connection, I think, from this Chinese double scull's pretty impressive, and just they're just getting a little bit more out of every stroke.
The Chinese have got a lot of sculling expertise and coaches working out there. They've got Jutta Lau, the great former German women's sculling coach. They've had Nate Cohen, the Kiwi, and then also Dick Thomas has been out there working too. So they have really looked around the world for the best expertise in sculling coaching.
And I'm interested in the way that it doesn't look to me like the Chinese handles come back that quickly. They look like they come back very slowly, but it's a long stroke, as opposed to this, which just looks slightly more snatched. I'm not saying it's going to necessarily win the race in the end, but I think there's just a very long stroke from some lightweight.
Yeah, just taking a look at these two Belgian crews, they couldn't row all through the season. That was because of the injury to Tim Brees. The bowman, he had a rib injury, and that meant that Niels van Zwager was spending a lot of the season in the lightweight men's single.
as you're saying, Greg, that Chinese crew, they're looking so long and smooth out in front. They're moving up to about 2/3 of a length lead, and I don't think that any of us predicted to see this. We thought the Italians would be the crew to watch, but you can see how much more movement there is in that Italian boat. They look a little shorter, a little more aggressive, particularly through the front end, really jamming that blade in through the catch, whereas the Chinese just really quite smooth and light through that pickup through the front end.
And that's right. And the point where you move the boat fastest is when it's at 90 degrees to the boat, just there. So just there. And you don't want to put in too much work too early. And I think that's just what the Italians are doing. They're just slamming it in a little bit too hard, a little bit too early, as opposed to that acceleration that I think is working for the Chinese.
Greg, let's talk about the setup of the boats, the gearing. I mean, would you not reckon the Chinese are geared harder for what they're doing at this moment of the race, just moving more per stroke, but actually it's a bit more difficult to get that blade through the water, and that might play into the Italians' advantage as the race goes on.
Well, they might not have the ability to change pace as they come into the closing stages when it becomes a sprint. And we see those flags there just showing a gentle headwind, which might be the sort of thing that, you know, could start to play, makes the race just slightly longer. At this particular point on the course, they're just coming into the breeze, and that makes it harder if you have a harder gearing, as opposed to the Italians, who might have that easier gearing, which is now perhaps just helping them to keep pace and keep right up there at the head of the course.
Yeah, look, I'd expect to see the Italians really pop up their rate. I mean, all of the Italian boats have a very signature style, don't they? They have that really short, aggressive start. They're a little bit more aggressive in the way that they row. You can see in the stroke seat, Pietro Ruta, how he lifts his shoulders through the front end there. He looks like he's really grabbing at it, but it's just, I mean, it's the way he rows, and it's obviously working for him. But they do have, I think quite often the Italians, they're not the classic example of rowing style, but they move fast nonetheless, and we can see that they've lifted their rate and they've been able to answer the call of what the Chinese have done. And I think it is that harder gearing that's really starting to weigh the Chinese down in this fourth quarter of the race.
The two Belgians there in third place. Heartache for them. They qualified for the Olympics by winning the Olympic qualification regatta last year, but Belgium had to choose between two winners of the Olympic qualification regatta. They took the single, Hannah Sobrano, and not this Belgian men's double. So this is real payback time for these two guys.
That's right, and those Belgians will want to take the opportunity here. You can see it now on those stroke rates in the bottom left of your screen that the Chinese are still only at 36 strokes per minute, where the other crews have been able to go up to either 40 or 38. And by taking more strokes, they've been able to accelerate their boat. So perhaps the Chinese are paying for that longer stroke.
And Greg, here's a fact for you. You know that pair that beat you in the Sydney Olympics?
I am familiar.
Jean-Christophe Rolland, Michel Andrea, coached by Dominic Bassonet. Well, Dominic Bassonet coaches this Belgian double, would you believe? So there's a little link for you.
And it's a link that's good to remember, those Sydney Olympics, and that fantastic race it was by Jean-Christophe Rolland, the now president of FISA, who's making sure everything happens smoothly here. As we see this one coming down towards the line, the Chinese now looking to respond and come back at the Italians.
Yeah, the Chinese trying to answer here, but I think it is that heavier gearing. It's making it very hard because they can see the Belgians bearing down on them. The Italians still up at just over 40 strokes a minute, and they're going to take the win. China in second, and the Belgians did really well to get themselves into that all-important third qualifying position into the A final.
Good sprint by the Czechs to take fourth place, but out of qualification position. It's nice to know, guys, I can still predict the odd race successfully at the start. And got the Italians to thank for that one. We've got good odds on these guys, Sun and Fan from China, taking the verdict in this race. The Belgians, job done in the A final. Great result for them. Now be challenging for a medal. There you see a very distinctive close shot of the two Danes. Emil S. Benson, the 25-year-old. Young Chinese sculler, Fan Junji. That's him as they move through the middle. The Chinese, of course, headed that race for the first half. For these guys, the Italians, Pietro Ruta, the man from Marina Militare in Sabaudia. We've spoken of that club before in south of Italy, well, just south of Rome, not as far south as Naples. The experienced 30 years of age. Sculled back in the 2012 Olympics, I think. Didn't make a medal there, but certainly on for a medal here.
And these slow-mo shots just show how clean and efficient they are, actually, which potentially is just more traditional, more what we expect than that tough gearing that we saw from the Chinese. It didn't quite pay off for them.
Conformation, another Italian crew does really well. They've really timed their training and season to perfection in